So first things, I like to start out with kind of a design intent so we can help prioritize what we're going to do, how we're going to meet that. So when I was looking at something, especially firearms, it's like people ask, oh, I want to get an AR-15, but I don't know what kind. It's like, well, how are you going to use it? And then you kind of go from there. What is your intended use case? So my intended use case of this would be kind of like the Jurassic Park scenario. Maybe a bunch of velociraptors where you need a ton of ammunition, a lot of firepower, but maybe a smaller package because you're going to be in and out of a jungle kind of thing. So, oh shit. So anyway, yeah, kind of, we'll start with, like I just mentioned, firepower. So I want a larger caliber. 12 gauge is kind of where I'm at. So just because that gives you a ton of options, plus you got a lot of different rounds you can choose, slugs, buckshot, whatever, and it's about as good as you're going to get for any kind of bigger game outside of specific caliber rifles. The next priority would be cost, and these I kind of put these two. They're almost interchangeable. Firepower and cost kind of get bang for your buck, so to speak. So that kind of narrows it down, kind of looking at different things. Then probably maybe secondary concerns or priorities. I guess this isn't really a secondary. Reliability. This would kind of go into here. So obviously, if you need something, you want it to be reliable. Any emergency situation, you're not going to want to have something that's going to jam or anything like that. So that kind of pushes me towards pump shotguns pretty quick, rather than semi-autos. Not saying semi-autos aren't reliable. It's just I've had semi-autos, or I have semi-autos, and they're not, different conditions, weather conditions can affect stuff. It's just a little bit more finicky. Granted, I've shot pump shotguns that are kind of finicky too, but we're kind of going to stay with kind of some more standard stuff. The next thing that would be, this would probably be, say this is 1, we'll say this is 2, so 3, we'll put smooth. And that's smooth as in no snag. So kind of a lot of carry guns, they round corners off. They don't keep stuff like sharp, just so when you go to pull it out, it's not going to snag on something, right? Like you're not going to go to pull out your carry pistol and then have it snag on your belt. So that would be an option. But we also, in this, we want the ability to carry a flashlight. Because if you got a pistol and you have a pistol in one hand, it doesn't have a pick rail or something, and you got a flashlight in the other hand, that's fine. That's doable. But a shotgun without, and you want to carry a flashlight, like that's going to be very difficult, especially a pump action. Even a semi-auto would be kind of wild. But so I want a way to mount a flashlight to this. It wouldn't be something that I would keep on there. It'd be something that I would put on at nighttime, when the sun goes down, just to have for whatever animals or velociraptors or whatever come by. And then last would be, I want it to be handy. So this, I want it to be short as possible, but I want to also be able to shoulder it. So that kind of narrows it down. If you're going as short as possible, you get one of the AOWs, like the Shockwaves, or any of those versions that aren't technically shotguns, I guess. But you can't shoulder those. It's illegal to put a shoulder stock on those things. So I want the ability to be as short as possible, close to the Shockwave length maybe, but I want to be able to shoulder it, because if you're if you're ripping out slugs, or you're trying to shoot anything decently far, that's going to be pretty difficult, or it is pretty difficult without a stock. So those are our priorities. So firepower, cost, bang for buck, right? Reliability, nice and smooth, so it's easy to pull, and a handy rifle or handy shotgun. All right, so first I kind of want to break down why I chose the Maverick 88 over the Shockwave. Both Mossberg guns, but these are kind of the two that kind of fit the bill the closest as far as what our priorities and criteria were. So first, as far as firepower goes, they're both 12 gauge. They're both capable of taking 3-inch Magnum rounds. So kind of equal there, but the tube is different because you have in the Shockwave you have a shorter gun overall, whereas the Maverick 88 I got a 20-inch gun, so the tube is longer. So technically the tube in the Maverick 88 is 7 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. So, and that includes 2 3/4 and 3-inch. So depending on what it just kind of just the way the tube length worked out, you could get 7 3-inch rounds in there. Whereas for the Shockwave, you've got 5 plus 1 for 2 3/4 inch, and then if you're putting a 3-inch like this, you've got 4 plus 1, and then you can add the little adapter to both these guns. I know Shockwave came out with a new gun. I forget what it's called, but the new Shockwave comes out to, where you can add 1 3/4 inch rounds, 2 3/4 inch, or 3-inch without any adapters, and it'll cycle and feed everything. Whereas the Maverick 88 and the older Shockwaves, you still have to there's a little rubber adapter, which I'll show you in a sec, that you have to put in there to cycle the 1 3/4 inch rounds. But if you do that, you can now fit 8 plus 1 in the Shockwave, but the Maverick you could fit 12 plus 1, which is kind of crazy. So in case you were wondering, all the throwing around the 2 3/4, 3-inch, 1 3/4 shot shells, this is a standard length, so this is 2 3/4. This is normally what you're going to see. This one's number 1 buck, and that just refers to what's inside, but in general, this is a 2 3/4. It's going to be pretty much all your standard, bird shot, or just kind of clay pigeon, just messing around, practice stuff's all going to be 2 3/4. The more specialized stuff is going to be something like a 3-inch, which is this guy. This is double aught buck, but slightly longer, not much, 2 3/4 and 3-inch. And then this here is the 1 3/4. So and this is a slug. So you can see the different sizes. In these, you're going to be able to fit more projectiles typically and more powder, so you're going to have more velocity out of the taller ones. One thing to know, so say this 2 3/4, right? You measure it, that's 2 3/8. The 3-inch shell is 2 1/2. The 1 3/4 inch shell, 1 3/8. And all that tells you is basically this is a 2 3/4. That's what it looks like before they roll those edges in, or crimp it, depending on what they do. So this one's rolled. You can kind of see rolled, and you can kind of see how this one has these like little fold marks. This one's just crimped, but this here will be close pretty much to 2 3/4. So that's all that means. So if somebody's telling you, hey, 2 3/4, you measure your tube, just remember you're not going to be actually 2 3/4 or 1 1/4 or 1 3/4 or 3-inch. Just keep that in mind. And the nice thing is, if you think about this, if you just throw this plus 1, the one that's in the chamber, that could be a 3-inch. So if you want to do, 1 3-inch in this, and then a whole bunch of 1 3/4, So your first round is a big one, and then all the rest are just follow up. You got a whole bunch of rounds. That's totally doable, and that's actually what I plan to do. So in this respect, as far as firepower goes, obviously the Maverick 88 is going to win just because you've got the longer tube and a little bit more adaptability in that. The second thing, which is cost, so the shockwaves, I'm not sure, depending where you get it, you're going to be around $500-ish. So that's kind of online on, the same price as like your standard Mossberg 500s or something, which is basically what the Maverick 88 is. It's a cheaper, blued version. It's got a plastic trigger guard, that kind of stuff of a Mossberg 500. But you get this guy 500 or the Maverick 88, depending where you get it. Around right now, they're about 250-ish bucks. They used to be even less than that. They used to be under 200. And again, we're specifically looking at, I should write that up here. This is the 20-inch model for the Maverick 88. The Shockwave, I can't remember. They're like 14-inch, and this is the barrel length. So 14 point something, I don't know, inches. Barrel length. So as far as our other criteria point, reliability, action, they're both pump, so that's just moot point. Same for those. The last portion, our last criteria point, was how handy is it? How, and I'm kind of gonna combine the smooth part for it too. So how handy? The Shockwave, so overall length on the Shockwave is 26.3 inches. The Maverick 88 is significantly longer than that with a full stock, but I plan to put a folding stock on there, which will be, it'll cut it down to right around 31 inches with a folding stock. So that right there, you're talking 5 inches, say. That's a pretty big deal to me, I think, as far as, okay, you've got, this one's $500, 8 plus 1. This one's $250, 12 plus 1. You're saving almost 5 inches with this, but less capability, more cost, and you kind of run into that. It's like, those are pretty close to the same. And you could always get, if you wanted to, you could get a Maverick 88, the 18.5 inch, and cut it down another 1.5 inches. So you'd be looking around, 29.5-ish inches. So it's like, kind of gets a little close. Granted, the extra cost in a folding stock is going to be in there. They're like, the ATI one that I picked up is like $70, something like that. $80, I can't remember. So just add that to the cost, but still, you're still saving a decent amount of money where you could put a bunch of rounds. So the as far as like smooth, they're both pretty smooth as far as this goes. They both, just a little bead sight, nothing crazy up front. I wouldn't say either of them have really much snags. As far as mounting lights, you're kind of into the same thing where you kind of want to add, you're going to have to add some kind of aftermarket stuff. So that smooth for pulling out, adding light ability, that's all kind of same. And I kind of add that now into the handy portion of this. So the other thing that I consider in this handy portion is the ability to add that, or have a stock in general. So this one, it will have a folding stock that you can shoot with folded. This one has no stock. So this is kind of a big deal. You'll never be able to legally add a stock to the Shockwave unless you go through the proper paperwork to do that for a short barreled shotgun. This gun, you can buy it, get a folding stock, add it yourself, and be done. So, and you could shoot it. You can still shoot it with it folded. So, kind of another big deal to me. I want to be able to, if you need it, if you had to just shoot right away, you've got that option. But if you want, you just fold it down. So overall, in my opinion, so it's, for the Maverick 88, +1 on firepower, +1 on cost, same for action, and handy's +1 just because of this, the ability to add that stock. That's huge. So, and then the cool thing, again, if you have, this same guy, 31-inch gun versus 26 and 3.3-inch gun, the cool thing that I think is this 12+1. So this is how I plan to do it. 1 3-inch double-aught buck in the chamber, and then you literally have, you can add a whole bunch of slugs in there. So that's 12 slugs and 1 3-inch double-aught buck. You can put whatever you want in that first shot. The rest have to be the same. But I don't know what kind of velociraptor scenario you're planning to go against, but this is kind of what I'm looking at, and this is the route I plan to go. And it's kind of crazy to think with all these. These are all 1 ounce. I think this is a 1.5 ounce. So you're talking 13.5 ounces of lead in a tube shotgun. One thing to know is that the 1 ounce in all these slugs, that's actually equivalent to 437.5 ounces. So even this little guy that's going 1,200 feet per second, so like about 9mm speeds, but instead of a 120-ish grain bullet, you've got a 437 grain. So significant difference. And as far as like the handy thing or quick to pull, I didn't want mags, just because you add now this huge bottom piece sticking out of the gun. I wanted it, just a tube shotgun because I want it to be easy to pull out of a pack or whatever. So again, you get all this 12+1, it's a significant amount of firepower in a small, easy package. So as far as these shorties go, so I'll be rocking the slugs. The buckshot kind of doesn't make too much sense to me. But this slug, it's a 1 ounce slug inside there, so that's the same as you'd find in any other one. So this is a Federal 1 ounce. I've got this is a 2 3/4 inch Federal, but also 1 ounce slug, so same thing. And then this one's a Remington slug, also 1 ounce. So obviously they look very different. You can fit way more of these than these guys, even though it's the same weight projectile. The only difference is going to be the velocity that these are coming out at. Velocity will make more of a difference, significantly more than just changing your weight as far as energy goes. But there's also, you kind of start getting into penetration, stuff like that. But in general, so like for bear, like slugs are pretty much the go-to. You want something that's just big, heavy, and has a lot of, as much velocity as possible to just hit and keep going through, whatever it hits, rather, hide, the bone, whatever. So these smaller guys wouldn't be great for, like, I don't know, actually. I don't know what they would do on like a bigger bear. I've heard that they will penetrate more just because they don't mushroom as much. I don't know if that's true. Maybe someone in the comments could let me know, but normally they would have, so like probably a 3-inch Brennecke or something like that slug. But in this case, if you're going for maximum amount of rounds, something like this is going to be pretty heavy duty. And you're still, again, you got 1 ounce, and these ones are going to be moving at 1,200 feet per second. So for this guy, so this one is 1 ounce, muzzle velocities, you probably can't see that, but 1610. So that's significant difference, about 400 feet per second. And then the Remington here are 1560. So I also found some 3-inch sluggers, same weight as far as slugs go, 1 ounce, but 1760 feet per second. Still, for the size, like, that's actually very impressive. This is actually doing 1200 feet per second with 1 ounce, and this is doing 1610 with 1 ounce, and you get 12 of these plus 1 in the chamber, which could be a 3-inch if you want. If you want more firepower, you could always add one of these. These will go on with Velcro. This little piece sticks to the side of your receiver, and then you just pull these off, add more as necessary. They're alright, they do pretty good. The TFB TV guys said the S-Tac ones were the ones to get. I don't really use them too much. This one, like, I mean, you can see this one's like this. I just use them as just a little extra to throw in a bag or whatever. But whole different bunch of versions like this if you wanted to add a little bit more rounds for our Jurassic Park scenario. So this is what we ended up with. So this is the Maverick 88 with the 20-inch barrel. And then, so in my mind, they do have like an 18.5-inch barrel, but with this 20-inch, you could actually fit, I think, at least 2 more shells. Even though it's an 1.5 inch longer barrel, you can get 2 more shells in here, because normally this tube is further back, somewhere like in here. So it's, you know, you take an 1.5 inch penalty to get 2 more shells. That's totally worth it in my mind. The one thing we will replace is this stock, just to make it shorter. So let me see here. So this gun from end to end is 40. I guess the end of the sling swivel, it's almost 41 inches. Let's see, the shockwave is 26.3 inches. So you're talking about right there. So basically right about, so right about the trigger, so is where the shockwave would end. And then this one is going to be, once you put that other stock on, it'll be somewhere in here. So you'll have, you'll take yet another, the 1.5 inch adds to this, but you'll take this penalty, probably 5 inches or whatever it is, but you'll take a 5-inch penalty there in length to have a lot, basically to have a stock on the gun where you can shoulder it, rather than just the hip shooting that you get out of a shockwave. So in my mind, that's 100 times better, especially if you ever try to turn this into like a drone shooter or something, which obviously you probably wouldn't. You'd probably want something with a choke and some 3-inch turkey loads or something. But at least this is a lot more adaptable, I guess, than the shockwave would be. And so as far as the mods go, this is Laserlight's Tri-Rail. Reason I went with this one, so you've got a 3, 6, 9 o'clock attachment. You could also do it on your diagonals, which is kind of cool, but I only really was going to do the bottom, and this slides over pretty easy, then you just run the screws in and tighten it. So I was initially only going to do the bottom, cut the side, the 3 and the 9 o'clock off, but it's actually fits. The width is a little bit smaller than the handguard itself, so I'm not sure. I might still maybe run the edges down on the belt sander, or just file them or whatever, just to reduce snags. I don't think I'm going to cut them right now, but we'll see. I do want to have the option at nighttime to just pop a light on there. So yeah, I'll mess with it, see if I really like that, but as of right now, it seems all right. Next thing was this is the Opsol mini clip. So these guys, it's just this. It's basically a piece of rubber. And what this does, I'll show you. So this goes basically in. It just gets pressed in here, and it's pretty snug. And that allows you to use those little 1 3/4 inch shells. So basically, whenever you cock this back, the shell, you can't really see, it's too dark, but that shell bumps into this rather than having a ton of room, the shell being able to bounce around. This is just kind of acting as like a spacer. So some of the newer shotguns, like the Mossbergs, the 590S, and I think the new Shockwave, and there's a few other ones. They're all made to kind of chamber the 1 3/4. But if you get like the Maverick 88, as of right now, they don't do that. So you kind of need this, which this is not expensive. I think I also ordered this. I think it was like $15 or something like that. So pretty cheap, super light, and it actually fits in there pretty good. Haven't shot it with it yet, so don't know, but I know they've got a lot of good reviews, and it's kind of the normal thing for shooting 1 3/4. And then the last thing I got was, this is ATI's folding stock. So I got this one instead of like Butler Creeks, which those are hard to find now, but you can still find them. But the thing I like about it is this thing just sits nice and flat on the top of your shotgun. So it'll actually go, once I get it installed, it'll sit right here, and then just flip it to open. It's all plastic. I don't know if that's good or bad to you. I've got another one of these. I've never had issues. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. But the nice thing is you get that very short, compact setup. So right here where this ends is going to be, the whole gun's going to be about 31 inches or so. So you're talking literally, what, 5 inches? A little over 5.5 inches longer than the Shockwave, which only holds a little bit. And you actually have a stock, you know, you got something to aim with. One thing I do like, which some people don't, so this is plastic, so a lot of people don't like that, versus the factory stock on here. This is actually pretty nice and soft, but this is a lot wider, so your surface area is wider, so it actually spreads it out pretty good. I don't really have a problem shooting 12 gauge, but you know, if you're new to it, you know, you might be, you know, you might want something there, which I'm not sure if they even sell anything for that. But you know, just shoot a few rounds, see what you like, and I'm sure you'll be fine. One thing I do not like about these things is, so when this thing is on the gun right here, in order to pull this off, so say you pull it out, you need to get it like an emergency situation, right? You pull the gun out, you go to open your stock, it's actually locked. You have to press this button down every time, and it locks back, and then when you go in, it locks in the folded position. I don't really like that, so we'll fix that to where you just grab this thing, pull it straight back, and you won't have to deal with that. So that makes that a lot better, in my opinion. I did that on my other one. But yeah, so it's really, you know, the Maverick 88, this stock, this guy, and that guy. So you're talking, I think this is like $75-$80, $15, and like $7 or $8. So a little over $100 just in these three, and the very inexpensive gun, you know. So you're still well under a brand new Shockwave or something like that, where you have a lot more capability here, in my opinion. Yeah, it's not as small or concealable, but it still gives you a ton of options, being the 12 gauge with the 20 inch and the long tube. So yeah, first things first, I'll show you what I do to fix this thing and get it to fold without pressing the button. Alright, so here's a little bit of a close-up of the back of the stock. So, you know, this might not be for everyone. If you want yours to stay locked all the time, that's fine. I just would rather be able to open it a little faster if I need to. So what you do here this is the button, and when that goes down, this thing can slide open. So all you got to do is basically file this piece down right there at the same angle as this button. So what'll happen then is you'll go ahead and it's almost like pressing the button. It'll act like a little ramp. As you open it, it just automatically presses that down. So I'll just use I'm going to use my belt sander, but you can use a file or anything to just take that down just a little bit, and just do a little bit at a time, so you make sure you don't mess anything up. Alright, so we got this side shaved down, but it looks like I need to get further back in here somewhere. Basically like this section. Sorry, went out of focus. Back here. So I'm gonna have to pull this apart, which is easy. I mean, it's in the directions. You have to put this together on your own anyway. So if you are gonna do it, I guess just start doing it first before you put it together. Alright, so here it is apart. It's literally one screw, so, and then this whole plunger comes out. But basically I couldn't get this wide enough right here. So with this off, basically the grip where it fits in there, I'll be able to come in here and take off a little further, because that button's kind of sitting right there. Alright, here we are back on the ground. It actually fits in frame now. So we are at, right there, that's 31 inches to the end of there's a sling swivel at the end of the tube here. So yeah, 31 inches versus 26.3. So we're literally 4 inches, a little over 4.5 inches. We'll just call it 5 inches longer than the Shockwave, with in my opinion a lot more usable shotgun. You got more firepower. You have the stock that you can actually use it to aim with, and then you also have the ability to shoot it like this, just as is. Granted, I'm not hating on the Mossberg Shockwave too much, or I'm trying not to. That does kind of have their place if you're prioritizing that, but I wanted to prioritize a little bit different things. So this is kind of what we ended up with. So this is the stock. So again, it doesn't lock this way, which is what I wanted. So you just go like that, come out. So it's pretty easy. This actually, I don't know. I was initially gonna keep it pretty far forward, but basically, so depending on what light you have, I guess it doesn't even really matter. So here's this is a Valkyrie. So this one's a Streamlight TLR H1, or TLR, what is that one? TLR1 HL. So it's a high output, high lumen one. And then this is just a Harbor Freight copy of this guy. No matter where you're at, you kind of don't want them too far back, because, or at least I don't. I kind of want it to be a deliberate move to turn these on. Especially, you don't want to accidentally turn it on at night if something that'll notice it. We'll see. So I kind of moved it forward, but now I don't like that it's kind of up here by itself. If it was, when it was back here, it kind of molded in, I guess, or kind of fit the shape of this. But now that it's forward, I think I am gonna go in. I'm gonna cut these off, all the 3 and 9 o'clock, and I'm just gonna, because all I really want is the bottom one. I don't really need the adaptability for the light. It's just once we get somewhere camping or whatever, I'll put the light on it and leave it. So I'm gonna cut these off, grind them down, just to make sure I have the least amount of stuff that can snag as possible. So here it is, all chopped, I basically just took a bandsaw, cut the 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I just sanded these smooth just so they're not sharp. But yeah, I like it a lot better, a lot less snag points. If it wasn't a priority for this gun to not have snags, I would obviously just leave that. But since I'm prioritizing that, this will be basically, the bottom will be the only thing that can catch, and then maybe the front sight bead. If you weren't going to paint the whole gun, I've used a Luma Black. I don't know if you guys have, but I don't know. I'd never really have the greatest success with that. It always looks kind of ugly. So if I was to do this and I wasn't planning on painting the whole gun, I would just paint this piece black over again with some spray paint and be done. So one thing that I did see some people mention is that when they're shooting these guns with this stock, this folding stock, there's this sharp molding edge right here that kind of digs into their hand. I never had an issue with it with my other one. I haven't looked to see if mine it's sharper or duller, but this one I did notice had some real sharp lines right here. So all I did is I got some 60 grit sandpaper, sanded it down on each side, and then just hit it with some 150 after, and super smooth now, so wouldn't have that issue. I did both sides just in case shooting left or right, but yeah, just something to know. I've never had an issue, but if you do, just know it's super easy to fix. Alright, so I was actually thinking, so I know it's only been like a few seconds for you guys, but I shaved this off last night, went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about this for whatever reason, but I was thinking anytime I'm pulling the shotgun out, I'm going to be pulling it that way, so I'd be mostly concerned with this edge here catching. So I was actually thinking now, so I'll show you. So the way this works, if you haven't seen one of these before, so this would be the bottom of the flashlight. Let's see right there. So that little bar, so that's a Glock bar, but it doesn't really matter. But that will slide into one of these slots, say like right there, and then it just gets clamped on this side. So, and that stops it from moving. So normally if I was going to put this on a gun, I'd put that bar probably on the very forward one just to kind of give me some room. It would overhang the front. It'd sit whatever somewhere in there. But I was thinking to reduce any snags or any more snags, I can just shave down this one at an angle and this one at an angle. I know it might be overkill, but I mean, I already cut the other thing down, might as well continue going. So I'll cut these two down. This bar where I'd normally have it on this one, I'll just put it on the middle slot right here, just because this is going to be a little weakened after I angle it, smooth it out. There would be a chance, small chance, but when you recoil, the gun recoils, the light's going to want to stay where it's at, so they'd basically pull apart this way. It could crack this eventually, being that this is aluminum, and then with the 12 gauge, that is a possibility. So I was thinking I'll just use the middle slot. I'll keep these two intact, these two right here, and I'll shave these down to where they're nice and smooth, and then that'll help further reduce any snagging possibilities, which was higher on our priority list. Cool, so here it is all modified. So all I did is on this side I just shaved those two down to nothing, just so when it's on there it'll be a little slicker. So there it is, basically kind of, I guess, deburred or whatever you want to call it, but basically smoothed out. So it'll sit on this guy, and definitely feel like that helps the profile. Should, at least a little bit. I know it's kind of overkill, but like I said, why not? So here's kind of just a quick demo of what these this little OPSOL thing does. So if you've got without it, sorry, and you cock it. See how that one kind of just bounces around in there? It can move. I mean, it'll probably cycle, or it can cycle for sure, but there's just like a lot of slop in there. If it comes back too far, you know, you can have issues. But let's take that out. If you just have one of these guys in there, back, this just goes press fit in there, and it is pretty tight, actually, surprisingly tight. Especially with it being rubber, it'll kind of flex and sit in there. So now that shell's going to come back, run into this, rather than having all this room to play in there, it'll stop it. So let's do that. So now, hard to see, but it's just kind of stuck in there. So it can't move further back. It just stops it from bouncing. And then as you go forward, it grabs it pretty easy. So pretty simple little thing. Cool they made it. And it seems to work. Again, the has good reviews. I'll deal with that later. So in order to get it ready for paint, I degreased it with this stuff first, Purple Power. I've had this forever. I don't even know if it's still around, but there's also this. Seems to be the same thing. They did say on the back, both of them, not for aluminum. So I don't know if it etches it or what, but the receiver is aluminum. So I just kind of, I skipped this part basically. But degreased it with Purple Power first. I gave it the old Shishini rub down with the whole thing, everything, and then I cleaned it everything off with the brake cleaner. So we're gonna give this a little tiger striping. So what I'm gonna do is get just masking tape, and I'm gonna first peel the edge just to kind of give it its own texture, so it's not like one clean cut piece. And I'm just going to do this. This will make it look a little more natural. I've never done this before, but should probably work. So this one needs a little more. There, so that'll be one black tiger stripe, and we'll add a few more throughout the gun. So there it is with all the tape on there. I just let it kind of rip however I wanted it, or however it wanted to. Slimmed them out, like kind of, you almost want them to be kind of weird shapes like that, because then it looks more natural. But so all that. So these are the colors. I'm gonna do base, this satin khaki, and then I'll do kind of blend these in some stripes, and then I'll do a little bit of just kind of little detail work. It's not going to be very difficult, and I'll show you that. And then I'll cover it with this flat clear. I like this stuff. It helps, adds another coat to the whole thing. Plus it also gets rid of any glare, which when I do the detail stuff, which I'll show you, sometimes you can get a kind of some gloss, even if you're doing like a flat color. So first thing is just to coat the whole thing in tan. And then next I'll just kind of put some random stripes of gray and green on there. So now I'm ready to start pulling off the little tiger striping. The green is a little darker than I was expecting, a little more like forest green, but that's cool. But yeah, next step is just peeling all these guys off, and then I'll show you the detail work I was talking about. So this is what it looks like with the tape came off. So kind of cool thing. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. I'll zoom in. Yeah, like the brown kind of came underneath, or the tan. So you almost got like a little outline of sorts. And I don't know if that's because the first coat I did was just super thick, and then the gray and the green were pretty thin comparatively. But it kind of left like a cool little outline. And yeah, oops. The only thing I had taped off in the whole gun was the brass bead, but I didn't even realize it had come off, so that got painted. So I'll have to just give that a little polish. But this came out pretty good too. Definitely liking how slick this is now with that shape. But onto the detail stuff. And I was initially using a little razor to pull the tape off, but it ended up being just way easier just scraping it with my fingernail. So if you're doing that, just save yourself some time. So for the detail stuff, I'm just going to use a sponge. I'm sure you maybe haven't, but there's like a little sponge method. You basically dip it into paint and then just dab it on. You could honestly use anything. I've used tons of other stuff. You could kind of experiment. Like I was thinking initially of using just like this piece of plastic, just kind of mash it up, and then you kind of get different textures. So if you want to like mess around before you do it, get some paint and do it on some cardboard, and you can try, see what you like. This kind of gives it more of like a, I don't know, maybe like a splinter style, because you get like real flat areas, and then the plastic's nice because it's not soaking up a ton of paint, so it kind of makes it a little, even a different style of texture. But yeah, you could use all kinds of stuff. This is Oliver Green tractor paint. That another project. That video is not posted yet. Hopefully I'll start getting that one up here pretty quick. That one's going to be a series, but anyway, I've got a ton of this, literally a gallon that I didn't use. So I'm just going to use this and dab this guy in there. And so even on the sponge, see how like this is more textured than say like this flat spot here. So I'm using the really textured one. So even on the sponge, you can get a whole lot of different effects. And this is just to add a little bit of a lighter color. Let's see. In there, kind of hard to see. And it's more for kind of close-up stuff. Whereas when you're far away, if you think of it like a resolution, if you're far away, like this would be one big pixel, this would be one big pixel, so each color would be its pixel. But if you're up closer, you can kind of get away with doing a little bit finer stuff, and this will kind of help break it up when you're closer. So I'm going to just finish this, and then I've got some Duracoat Cad Pad Brown that I'm going to just do the same, just with another piece of sponge. And I'm going to pepper this guy, let it dry, and then I'll clear coat it with that matte clear, and then be done. And when you're like adding your second like color like this, or third, or however many you do, don't be afraid to kind of overlap them, because it kind of adds to the depth of stuff. So the black itself will add some depth, and just because of the contrast, so it'll make the thing look further. But when you kind of layer real sharp over another, like a real sharp color like this brown over the real sharp green with like a faded background, it kind of adds literally like layers and depth. So when you're looking at it from closer up, it kind of messes with your eye. Granted, you know, if I was doing like a full like camo, this is more kind of look cool, less of you know, trying to hide as much as possible. But if I was doing that, I would do things a little different. But this will still work really well and look cool. So you can see where I laid on the paint real thick, it stays pretty glossy. So I'll hit it with the mat, and that'll knock down all that pretty well. I'm gonna do the whole gun. So I did end up adding this guy, this light green. It kind of helped bring out the dark greens and stuff. Just kind of set everything off. But honestly, you could use whatever you got. Here it is, all done. Came out pretty cool. Like I thought the like where this, like, say, let me see, maybe like here. It just didn't look as good with the dark green and the brown on there. And I think the light green really adds to it, kind of sets everything off a little bit. But whole thing's done. And then the flat clear looks really good too. It knocks everything down for the most part, because there's a ton of these were just glossy, just because the amount I put on it. But yeah, it will still got some like tan lines and stuff, but that's all right. That goes away. But yeah, that tape actually worked really well. Like I said, that was the first time I tried it, but there's no reason it wouldn't work. And I do like, kind of with the way it tears, like I'd shown before. Let's see. It's like with a tear, you kind of get these feathered edges. And I think that's what, like I said, made kind of give it these like outlines, which looks really cool. But yeah, overall, I'm happy with the way it came out. And I do obviously paint. I don't mind painting that, the bolt and stuff. I try not to get stuff in the chamber, but I don't care about the bolt or any of the parts that are going to rub, because where you're using it, that stuff's going to rub off. And as long as you're cleaning your gun, you're going to get all that stuff out, and you'll still end up with a camouflage thing. I've done like AR bolt carrier groups and stuff before where they're exposed, and it's fine. So just do it after you shoot it a few times, clean your gun. Like now I'll have to go in and oil everything back up. But yeah, it's totally cool to put that in there, unless you're going to clog something like a gas port somewhere weird. But here, this is, with pump action, you're not going to hurt this. This is 1 3/4 inch, 1200 feet per second, 1 ounce slug. This is 2 3/4 inch, 1560 feet per second, and 1 ounce slug. This is 3-inch slug, 1760 feet per second, 1 ounce. All right, so overall in review, I feel like we hit all of our design priorities pretty well. The 12 gauge firepower on this thing is obviously good. The fact that we can add so many slugs in there is kind of crazy, especially with just like just a double-aught buck for that first round. You got 3/4 pound of lead just in a tube shotgun, which is kind of crazy. And then cost, we're $350 all in. So, you can't really complain about that for what you're getting out of this thing. As far as reliability goes, initial testing went good. Didn't fire a ton of rounds through it, but we'll have to revisit that in the end. But these have a good reputation for a reason, so I'm not expecting anything negative there. Obviously very smooth. Things. I'll roll in some slow-mo footage of that right now, me pulling the thing out. I tested it in a few different packs and stuff, and that one, the one ILBE Marpat pack that I had has a nice little slot for a whole bunch of stuff, but worked great in there. But yeah, overall, in general, it was easy to pull out. I think that shaving that we did on the Picatinny rail actually helped a lot. So Haven't had any snags. Again, haven't tested it a ton, but I did test it in a few different spots, a few different backpacks and truck, whatever. So that's all going really good. And then our is wanted to be short, but also be able to shoulder it. Like the fact that you can do both of those, you can fire it with the folded is awesome. But hey, if you wanna actually aim with the thing, you can flip it down, and yeah, just works perfect. The camo came out really well, probably a little better than I was expecting, to be honest. But there was actually shooting it for a little bit. I did notice, and actually carrying it, I did notice there's another little issue. So I'm gonna follow up with this with a little add-on, kind of a little bonus to everything. But yeah, after everything, I didn't even come up with this at the beginning, but after going through the whole process, I think I'm going to name this Clever Girl from Jurassic Park, kind of like that Sposs 12 that guy had. Not as cool as a Sposs 12, but still came out pretty cool. So anyway, here's on to our little bonus. Well, last thing's last, kind of a little bonus thing I didn't plan on, but with this thing being camouflaged like this, it's actually, in an emergency situation, you go to grab it, and sometimes you can't really see exactly where it's at, depending on where your gun is, what it's laying in, and your pistol grip doesn't really stand out. So I was thinking initially, I'll just hit this with a little bit of red on there, just so if you glance down, you see the red, you just grab it, and you got your pistol grip. But I ended up getting some of this stuff. This is actually like a silicone grip tape type stuff for it's actually for like sport stuff, like baseball bats, I don't know, whatever else, tennis. No adhesive, it just sticks to itself. And I always saw those like pictures of those dudes in, I don't know, like Afghanistan and Africa and stuff. They always had like some Tygon tubing or some kind of medical tubing wrapped on their AKs, and I always wondered how that felt as far as like additional grip. So figured I'd try something a little different. So this is only, I think, I don't even know, like $10, $7. Came with 2 rolls, way more than I need. But yeah, so I'm just gonna wrap this around the grip, give it a little bit better texture, and make it a little more visible, so it's real easy to see in like emergency situation, which is what we built the gun for. Well, it actually feels really good. Not like super sticky at all, but decent grip for sure, better than just the plastic. And it actually, let's see, it adheres to itself weirdly well. Didn't expect that. It definitely does the job, right? Like you see that, in an emergency situation, you'll know exactly where to grab, just corner your eye. But it's almost might be a little too much. I might end up going back later and doing 2, but we'll see. We'll see how this even lasts. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, if I'll use it for a while. If I don't like it, I'll just end up, my initial thought was just paint it. I got plenty of red paint, so I can just wrap that, no problem, with a little bit of, I'll probably do like the same speckling I would do here, just with some red, but nice and visible. Definitely does a trick, adds grip, inexpensive, and with those rolls, I mean, I didn't use that much, so it goes a long way if you got a bunch of them. But anyway, that's it for now. I think I'll just go use it, see if I like everything, and maybe in the future I'll do a follow-up or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Clever girl.